Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Brandon, and welcome back to Marotta Media. So this weekend is the 97th Annual Academy Awards. And as I've done every single year since I've been making content, I will be going over all of this year's Best Picture nominees. Because for about the 5th or 6th year in a row, I have seen all of this year's Best Picture nominees, and I thought what better way to celebrate the Oscars than to rank them. So I will be ranking all 10 of this year's nominees, giving my brief thoughts on them, and also going over what awards I think they are going to win or have a chance to win. So let's just get right into ranking all 10 of this year's Best Picture nominees. Starting us off at the bottom at number 10 is a movie that I'm sure no one will be surprised that I have this low, and that is Emilia Perez. I am already very comfortable saying that Emilia Perez is one of the worst movies nominated for Best Picture. How this movie got 13 total nominations is beyond me. I feel like the Academy was just doing their absolute best to show that they're being progressive by nominating this movie without realizing that this movie is, one, not only terrible, but two, it's actually pretty offensive. It's offensive because of how bad it is, and it is offensive in the way that it portrays Mexican culture and transgender people. Because what confused me most about this movie is that it is a French film, it is written and directed by a Frenchman, and it all takes place in Mexico, and there's parts of it spoken in English, two languages that the director himself does not speak. The movie was mostly shot in France, and the director, Jacques Audiard, even came out and said that he doesn't need to study Mexican culture because he knew enough about it. This movie is also a musical, and it absolutely fails at being a musical because none of the musical sequences or songs are memorable or good. How can you possibly make a musical without having at least one good song? The acting all around is pretty terrible to just okay. Selena Gomez is awful in this movie. The star, Carla Sofia Gascon, is fine, I guess, and she's been getting into a lot of trouble lately, but I'm not really going to get into that. The best part of this movie is easily Zoe Saldana, but she plays one of the most empty characters ever. She legitimately plays a character that you know little to nothing about. This movie really doesn't make any sense in the grand scheme of things. It's not a good movie, and again, I cannot believe that it's nominated for nearly as much as it is. Despite this movie being nominated for 13 Oscars, I really think at this point it's only going to win 2. It's going to win Best Supporting Actress for Zoe Saldana, unfortunately, and it's going to win Best Original Song, unfortunately. Specifically, it's going to win Best Original Song for El Mal. There was a time where I thought this was an absolute lock to win Best International Feature, but I think that's going to go to something else at this point, and you'll see that movie shortly. But yeah, I would much rather prefer this movie go 0 for 13 because it doesn't deserve to get rewarded for anything. I even saw someone put it perfectly. How can you be rewarded for being the best part of a terrible movie, as Zoe Saldana is in this case? But those two categories I think are locks. I could be wrong, and I would love to be wrong in this case because, like I said, this movie deserves nothing, and it's terrible. It should never be remembered. Now we're only going to get positive from this point forward. All of the movies remaining I actually think are good to great. And at number 9, I have Nickel Boys. Nickel Boys is a movie that a lot of people have been saying is the best movie or their favorite movie of 2024. And after watching it, I can absolutely see why people are saying that, because this movie is incredibly unique and ambitious. Through the way that this movie is presented in a first-person point of view, telling the story of Jim Crow-era Florida about this all-boys reform school, based off of a true story, by the way, a story that I was not previously familiar with, and I love when movies bring attention to stories in American history like that. The cinematography is beautiful. As I said, the story is important. The acting is brilliant. It's phenomenally directed by Ramel Ross. I wouldn't have minded if he got a Best Director nomination, but he did not. But for me, the biggest problem with Nickel Boys is that this movie just felt like a drag. I really hate using that excuse, but I cannot overlook if I'm starting to get a little bit bored while watching a movie. The third act of this movie truly drags on, and as it came closer and closer to the end, I really just wanted it to be over. But I will say that this movie does have a fantastic ending that I didn't see coming, and it honestly left my jaw on the floor. It is a really, really good movie, but unfortunately, I just did not love it as much as other people. And I do not think that this movie is going to take home any awards on Oscars night. I think it's only nominated in about 3 categories, if I remember correctly. But that does not take away from this movie because it is still really good. It's unique, it's ambitious, and it is important. So if you haven't seen Nickel Boys, I highly recommend you check it out. At number 8, I have the movie that I alluded to when I was talking about Emilia Perez, and that was the Brazilian film I'm Still Here. I'm Still Here is a movie that came out of absolutely nowhere when it got nominated for Best Picture. Nobody was predicting that this movie would get a Best Picture nomination. And having watched I'm Still Here a few weeks ago, I can absolutely see why it earned one. Because just like Nickel Boys, this is a very important story showcasing a point of history that I was not familiar with, a time where the entire country of Brazil was under military dictatorship. And when I saw this movie a few weeks ago, I reviewed it on TikTok, and it reached Brazil, and so many Brazilian people reached out saying how thankful they were that I watched this movie and how I was open to experiencing the cultures of other countries. It was truly one of the most heartwarming things that I have ever experienced, and I absolutely loved reading all the very nice and heartwarming comments that I got. And it's for that reason I feel so bad to have this movie this low, but all the other nominees I just liked a lot more. But Fernanda Torres gives one of the best performances of the entire year in this movie. The cinematography is beautiful, it's fantastically directed, written. There's just that sense of uncertainty, like you don't know what's going on as an audience member, and so many of those Brazilians that commented on my video were saying that's exactly what it felt like to be in this situation. You had no clue what was happening or when it was going to end. And that is a really good way of putting it that made me appreciate this movie that much more. And I think that this movie will be taking home Best International Feature. And I'm really happy that it looks like it will because, as I said, Emilia Perez does not deserve to win anything. But I think that is the only award that it will take. There seems to be some belief that Fernanda Torres could take home Best Actress. If she did, I wouldn't be mad, but I don't think she's going to. And moving on to number 7, we have Conclave. This is a movie that I really enjoyed, and there seems to be some belief that this could sneak up and win Best Picture, and I wouldn't care if it did because anything but Emilia Perez. But I just think this would be a very safe choice to win that award. But that's not to say that this movie isn't good, because I think it's excellent. The ensemble is fantastic, led by a great performance from Ralph Fiennes. This movie has some of the best cinematography of the year, which it was absolutely snubbed for in that category. It's very well edited, the story is actually pretty intense, and just like Nickel Boys, it all leads to an ending that I certainly didn't expect. As of right now, I think that Conclave is going to win 2 Oscars. It is going to win Best Adapted Screenplay, that is one of the biggest locks of the night, and I think it will also be taking home Best Editing. At number 6, I have the latest musical biopic that we were gifted in 2024, that being the Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown. I've said in the past that musical biopics seem to have run their course because the genre as a whole has just gotten very stale. All of the movies that you see about these famous musical artists nowadays are more or less the exact same thing. They tell the same story, they go through the same beats, it's the exact same story structure, it doesn't really offer anything new. But I don't think that was the case for A Complete Unknown because I'm not really a Bob Dylan fan, and I really liked this movie. Mainly because Timothée Chalamet is absolutely fantastic as Bob Dylan. The supporting cast is also fantastic as well, specifically Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. And this movie does not have the same story structure that you would typically see in other musical biopics. It doesn't begin with Bob Dylan as a baby discovering music or anything like that. The movie literally opens with him on his way to New York City to try to become a famous musician. And it focuses specifically on one aspect of Bob Dylan's life, that being when he chose to start making electric music, which the music industry was not fond of. And I like that it did that. It only focused on one part of his life rather than his entire life. This is a movie that is truly a wild card when it comes to the Oscars this year because it could win a few awards, but to tell you the truth, I don't think it's going to win any. Timothée Chalamet did just win the SAG Award for Best Actor, but I don't know if he's going to win that here. He very well could win the Oscar, but my money isn't on him. And I know some people will be upset about that, but believe me, Timothée Chalamet has time to win an Oscar. He's only 29 years old. He's going to be in a lot more other great movies and give great performances. One coming later this year in a movie called Marty Supreme. He could win Best Actor, but I don't think that he will. Now we will be getting into the top 5 of this year's Best Picture nominees. And at number 5, I have the 3.5-hour American epic, The Brutalist. The Brutalist is a movie that I absolutely understand why someone would not enjoy. Because yes, if you have not heard of this movie, you heard me correctly. This movie is 3.5 hours long. And while it may run a little bit too long, and the first half is definitely a lot stronger than the second half, this is still a movie that I really enjoyed. I can do nothing but marvel at it because I think that this movie is nothing short of an achievement in filmmaking. When you consider that this movie is able to do the things that it does with a $10 million budget, I mean, how can you do anything but not admire that? The cinematography is absolutely gorgeous, the score is beautiful, and all these elements specifically come together beautifully in the intro, where you see Laszlo Toth, played by Adrian Brody, making his way through a boat, and he emerges to the deck of the boat, and we're introduced to this stunning shot of the Statue of Liberty upside down, which also serves as one of the posters for this movie and a great metaphor for this movie's message as a whole. All of it comes together so beautifully. This is just truly an amazing movie when it comes to filmmaking. And I loved almost everything about it, but yes, it does drag a little bit and it does start to be a little bit less interesting in the second half of it. And I think that The Brutalist will be taking home 3 awards at the Oscars. I think that Adrian Brody will be taking home Best Actor. It will be winning Best Cinematography as well as Best Score. And I do think that all of those awards are absolutely deserved, even though there was that very slight AI controversy surrounding this movie. But it doesn't really seem like it derailed its chances all that much. But this movie's director, Brady Corbet, could also very well win Best Director. I don't really believe he will, but it would not shock me if he did. The Brutalist is also still in contention for Best Picture. This was my pick about a month ago, but it isn't anymore. You'll see which one it is later. But going home with 3 awards on the night, that's nothing to hang your head about. Batting cleanup in my ranking of this year's Best Picture nominees, I have the body horror film The Substance. I still truly cannot believe that this movie received a Best Picture nomination. This is something that the Academy never goes for. It's basically an inside joke at this point that the Academy does not acknowledge or really like horror movies all that much. But I guess something about The Substance really resonated with them because this movie got a lot more attention than I thought it would at the Oscars. The overall message just about Hollywood, the entertainment industry, and the overall ridiculousness of society's beauty standards, specifically placed on women. This movie is just trying to tell you that there is nothing wrong with aging, with getting older, because that's part of life. Everyone ages, everyone gets older. I've gotten older just filming this video. So it's nothing to be ashamed about, and it's also nothing to shame others about. But The Substance portrays all of these themes in the most batshit way possible. Because this movie easily has one of the most bonkers, off-the-walls, insane third acts that I have ever seen. I really find it hilarious that this movie got so many Oscar nominations, but I'm not complaining because, as you could see, I think it's a great movie. The Substance is an absolute lock to win Best Makeup and Hairstyling. I don't think anything really comes close to it. And the only other award that this movie could win is Best Actress for Demi Moore. Demi Moore very well could win Best Actress. I wouldn't care if she did, but I don't think she will or she should. I just don't like how the Oscars reward these people for, like, legacy awards, basically, saying, even though you might not have earned this award for this movie, you've been in this business long enough, so we're gonna give you an Oscar for it. I just don't like that. But I would be happy for her if she won, but she's not my pick to win. So the only award I think The Substance will be taking is makeup and hairstyling. At number 3, I have the musical event that took the world by storm at the end of the year, Wicked. I've talked at length about how much I love Wicked, so I don't know what more I can say about this movie. But as I've said, I'm a really big fan of the musical. I've seen the stage play 3 times, and I will be going again for a 4th time in 2 weeks. And I just love how this movie stayed so faithful to the source material, but at the same time it felt like a rather fresh and original take on this story. It's just done so well. The musical sequences are everything you want out of a movie musical. Just these big, bombastic settings, choreography, everything you could possibly ask for. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are both excellent and have stupendous chemistry with one another. And Ariana Grande would be my pick for Best Supporting Actress, but I don't think she has a chance, but I'm holding out hope. Wicked, I think, will be taking home 2 awards on the night, that being Best Costumes and Best Production Design. And I can absolutely understand why, because the costumes are very extravagant and the production design in Wicked is pretty ridiculous. But yeah, just 2 awards on the night for Wicked, but hey, this isn't its only chance because, as I said, Part 2 or Wicked for Good comes out later this year, so we'll see how many nominations that movie gets a year from now. In the runner-up spot, I have one of my favorite movies of 2024, and that was Anora. Anora is a movie that I had not previously heard about, but it got a lot of buzz coming out of the Cannes Film Festival early last year. It won the Palme d'Or, which is the top prize at that festival. Mikey Madison was getting so much awards buzz, and I was shocked to see that the girl who burned alive at the end of Scream 5 and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was getting awards buzz like that. She is brilliant in this movie. Anora is a very funny and heartfelt retelling of what a modern-day Cinderella story would look like. A story that's rather dark and off-putting and may or may not have a happy ending. And that's another thing about this movie. I loved this movie's ending. The final shot is just heartbreaking, and it will definitely bring some people to tears if you haven't seen this movie. Anora, I think, is going to be a big winner on this night. I really think that this movie is going to win Best Picture, Best Director for Sean Baker, Best Actress for Mikey Madison, as well as Best Original Screenplay. This could also win editing, but I'm going to stick with Conclave on that one. But since this movie won WGA, DGA, and PGA, that basically kind of cemented it as this year's Best Picture winner. Because if I remember correctly, the only movie to ever win those awards previously and not win Best Picture at the Oscars was Brokeback Mountain. As I said, though, Sean Baker could not win. He could lose to Brady Corbet, and Mikey Madison could lose to Demi Moore, but those are my picks. I'm sticking with Mikey and Sean. And finally, we've reached the top spot, and if you guys know me even a little bit, or if you've been following me for any amount of time, you will know what's at the top. It's Dune Part 2. And I have said really all I can say about Dune Part 2 at this point. There really isn't any more that needs to be said, really. Just know that I love this movie. I think it's perfect. It's the only 10 out of 10 that I gave last year. I saw this movie in theaters 3 times. I own the Steelbook, as you can see. This is just a movie that I love dearly, and if it were up to me, this would win Best Picture, and hell, it would win probably all the awards, but it's not going to. The fact that Dune Part 1 got 10 nominations and this one only got 5, I think is a little bit strange, because Dune Part 2 is a better film. I do think it's going to take home 2 of the technical awards, that being Best Sound and Best Visual Effects, because it absolutely deserves it. I would pick this, though, to win cinematography and score. It's not nominated, though, and production design and director, but Denis not nominated either. Also, Best Editing, because Joe Walker won Best Editing for Dune Part 1 a few years ago, but he wasn't even nominated this year. Oh, and of course I would pick this to win Best Picture. I don't understand why the Academy didn't really seem to love this movie as much as other people. Is it because it came out in March and everyone just forgot? Because if that's it, then That's not right. All right, that is it, everybody. That was my ranking of this year's 10 nominees for Best Pictures at the Academy Awards. If you guys have seen any of these movies, let me know what you think of them down in the comments. Do you agree with my placements, or where would you have them placed? Or hell, if you've seen all of them, let me know how you would rank them in the comments. If you guys like this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. If you want to see my full reviews of Dune Part 2 as well as Wicked, I will link those right over here. Other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day. I will see you all at the Oscars.